Alright, I'm finally making my Genshin tips and tricks video featuring, just like a random other bonus info. I mentioned it in my tier list video, not that I'm trying to like plug or anything here, but when I made that recent one, I knew like a bunch of people were probably going to be coming into this game because of the not cry release and the way that the marketing was kind of being set up as, where it was kind of looking like a new part of Genshin, kind of, because when you open up the game, it's Genshin something Welkin Moon or whatever. So I had already guessed there was probably gonna be a bunch of new players, and also because since it's like a new major version, there was gonna be a bunch of new players. Um, so I've been seeing like a bunch of people making posts about pretty much just they're kind of lost when they're trying to play this game, and there's like people that are saying I don't understand all the currencies, like the primos, the masterless glitters, what characters to get, things like that. Um, so yeah, and also all the people that are kind of saying, should I start playing now or should I wait, or is it too late to start the game, etc., etc. So I'm making this video. Here's kind of like the general outline of things that I want to talk about, but yeah, I didn't really think of that many off the top of my head when I was making this like a little bit ago. But it's one of those things where as I talk, I'll probably think of more things to talk about specifically, but in general, this is kind of like the outline. So just to set like expectations or like any disclaimers, ahead of time. This isn't going to be like a super edited video because I don't really have the editing skills or talent to do that. So you're just going to have to listen to me talk for however long this ends up being. This also isn't like a min-max guide. I don't know if there's like a min-max guide for this game, but Genshin isn't the type of game where you have to min-max though, so I wouldn't worry too much about stuff like that. Um, this is also just gonna be like me from like my perspective of like what I would do if I were starting another account. Back in the day, I actually had a second account that I made a couple months after this current main account, and I did a lot of things a lot more optimally, and I would assume that they still play now. Even though I stopped playing that account like around Inazuma, because by then I realized I couldn't manage 2 accounts anymore, because it's like way too much. But yeah, I'll try to account for new players as much as I can, but I'm not gonna say that this will be like the perfect guide, because most of the stuff is gonna be like legit off the top of my head as I'm kind of going along. So feel free to, correct anything or like add any bonus info that you might think is like useful. Any questions, comments, or concerns, just like let me know and I'll try to answer as much as I can. Yeah, for anybody that comes in and, wants to correct anything or like add bonus info, I would just say to not type like an entire essay, but more so like maybe go off of a topic that I talked about and then just timestamp it and be like, for bonus content or bonus info for this timestamp, maybe you should consider also doing this, or maybe instead of doing that, you should consider doing this. But otherwise, yeah, try to add whatever you can that's relevant, I would say. Otherwise, yeah, this will pretty much... I'm going to try to get as much as I can into this one video, so that way I don't have like a bunch of split up videos. But, I mean, there's like so much in this game that it's kind of going to be really hard to do that. But, yeah, and then, yeah. I mean, they're probably like way better videos, but, I decided to just make my own. So starting with tip number 0, we'll go with 0 for this one. So, if you didn't play this game when it originally launched, you missed out. This game was like no other, and for a lot of people, this was like their first character loot box type of game, me included. So everybody was lost. Everybody had no idea. Like the elemental system was like too complex back in the day. Like nobody really understood it. A lot of people had dual main DPS characters and like no healer, and nobody really did elemental reactions. You know, like in a smart way, I guess you could say. I would say it didn't help that the intro tutorial characters with like Lisa Amber, Animal Maid Traveler, Kea, they didn't really make a cohesive team. So in my opinion, I don't know if they've ever went back and kind of changed that up. I'm pretty sure they didn't. In my opinion, they should maybe consider redoing the intro a little bit for those types of things. But yeah, everybody was pretty lost. This was like one of the first few games. Obviously, there probably were others, but one of the rare exceptions where like the entire game was completely brand new, and across all servers it was pretty much synced. Like obviously, like CN is like ahead by like a day or like half a day or something like that. But otherwise, like everything's pretty much 1-to-1. So there weren't like guides ahead of time for people to where like, you know, another game was out for like a year in like CN or JP or whatever. Everything was coordinated, so like nobody knew like anything pretty much. So yeah, everybody was lost. Nobody really knew how to do like anything. There was like a lot of like random information kind of going around. I think one of the biggest ones was like, don't do Abyss because it's like paid player only type of territory, which I listened to that a little too much. So I mean, I ended up like not even doing Abyss for like the first year. Up until like Child's first rerun, which was like around like a year later, and that's kind of like when I started doing Abyss. And then, you know, there were like a bunch of like random like rumor things of like, ooh, chest respawn and stuff like that. So it was like a completely new thing for like a lot of people. And yeah, you will never be able to experience that. And I say that not to like sound, you know, like you missed out or whatever. I say that because there are a lot of people who genuinely ask, is now a bad time to start, or did I miss out, or is it too late to start? Should I start now? You know, things like that. And the answer is, it's never too late to get into the game, purely because you can still have that experience of like being super lost and like the game's like new to you and stuff like that. Obviously, there are like a million guides out. And you may have had something spoiled, but for the most part, most of it is most likely out of context stuff. So like, even if you kind of know about it, you don't actually know about it, you know what I mean? So just because you can no longer go back to like the day one launch of this game doesn't mean you still can't have that new player experience. You can't have that while I'm playing a game for the first time and I'm completely lost and like completely overwhelmed, because everybody was overwhelmed when this game came out. Obviously, there's like way more content these days, but for the most part, you can still have that experience. And yeah, I mean, you can play the game now. There's no better time to start because, you know, it's always like one of those things where should I wait until like the next anniversary or whatever. And not to say like the cringe, you know, now the best time to start was yesterday and the next best time is today. I think you should just play the game just whenever you decide you want to like just commit to the game, I would say. Um, Obviously, whenever like a new version comes out, that's like the new best time technically, I guess. Because obviously you get like a bunch of like new patch rewards and stuff like that, but otherwise, yeah, you can play the game now. There is nothing holding you back really outside of like if you don't have the device to run it or the storage to hold the game. But otherwise, yeah, you can still have the fun experience of like it being the new game. And yeah, you can still like enjoy everything this game has to offer. And no, it's not too late because there's still minimum probably like 2 or 3 years for like the main story, but obviously they can continue to extend it like they have with Nodcry. So I would say minimum like about 4 or 5 years left of this game for like the main story, but obviously they're gonna do way more past just the main story. So yeah, you're not too late, trust me. You can join in whenever, really. So all of that aside, um, the first thing when you start playing this game is to just focus on the story, focus on exploration, and try to spend your resin as much as you can. And the reason I'm here is because it's like the start of the game. You kind of progress along here, and then from here you kind of go to like Mondstadt, and Mondstadt's pretty much like your first area. My recommendation would be to just focus on the story as much as you can. Um, Focus on story and then kind of do exploration kind of here and there, or purely focus on story and then do exploration after. I don't want to like have too many spoilers for like future areas, obviously, but I would say around Sumeru is when a lot of the exploration kind of gets locked behind quests. So it's like really worth trying to do quests and story stuff first and then kind of doing exploration, but obviously it's one of those things where you can focus on what you enjoy. I personally really like the exploration part of this game. So it's like really hard sometimes to like only focus on the story because I really want to just start like exploring everything. But it's one of those things where, yeah, try to do story as much as you can, progress your AR, which AR is your adventure rank. And the more you level this, the more activities and stuff become available to you. And this is also how you increase your world level. Increasing your world level just makes the world harder, makes enemies drop more items, and you get better domain rewards. As of this patch, I think level 9 got added like a year ago. But before that, you used to only go up to like level 8 at AR 55. So yeah, these days you can get to AR 45-ish pretty easily just from doing like, there's so many quests these days. So AR 45 is kind of like the minimum you should try to get to before you try to do like anything else really. That's around when you want to start farming artifacts, which artifacts are how you make your character stronger. This is kind of like the resin sink, which resin is, this fills up 1 every 8 minutes with a total of 200. This is how you like farm stuff, so like ley lines, world bosses to like level up your character or to ascend your characters, and then you do ley lines for XP books or mora. So like these blue ones, the blue ley line gives XP books, and that's how you level up your characters. And then there are like these gold ones that give you mora, and mora is that's like the general currency for leveling up in-game stuff. And then there are things like domains where like this is a weapon domain or weapon ascension material domain. So if you want to ascend your weapon, because I think it's like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, so on and so on. You need like these materials to further ascend your weapon, and then the world boss materials to further ascend your characters in the same way. And then there are other things like skill book domains, and this is how you level up your character skills. And then the artifact domains, which this is how you get artifacts. My personal recommendation when it comes to spending resin is early game, you kind of want to just try to farm things kind of at the same rate, I guess you could say. You should focus on like 4 to 6 characters, but realistically like 2 to 3, because you're not gonna have that many resources available, obviously, right away. And you don't want to hard limit yourself right away, because like once you start running out of resources, then your progression stalls, and then it gets like really annoying for you, because then enemies get progressively harder, especially if you actively are trying to ascend your world level. Which I would recommend ascending like as soon as possible, just so you can get like the better drops from like enemies, and like ley lines start giving more drops, etc, etc. But only ascend your world level if you don't mind, you know, the difficulty spike. You know, I'll get more into that after, because I think that's like another topic for later. But yeah, just for like the early game, yeah, you just focus on story, do some exploration, and spend your resin as much as you can, just so that way you don't overcap, because once you cap, it doesn't like, you know, you stop getting resin at that point. That being said, don't feel like too pressured into like, oh man, I gotta like min-max my resin, otherwise like if it go overcaps, then I just like ruined everything. Because I've overcapped like a bunch of times, and like when you start to think about it, it's like it's literally 1 per 8 minutes, so like even if it overcapped by like a little bit, then you know it's only like a couple resin, like it's not the end of the world. You know, you'll be fine. But try to spend that as much as you can. Again, my recommendation being kind of like split it between XP books, mora, because you're gonna need like a lot of mora for that. You need mora for like everything. Leveling up your weapons, leveling up your artifacts, leveling up your character, leveling up your skills. And then yeah, just ascending your characters. I would recommend also leveling up your like your main DPSs first, and then your support, like your sub DPS can be like maybe 10 or 20 levels under, and then like your healer type characters can be like 20, 30 levels under. You know, for the early game, that is, because I mean, it'll also depend on how much damage you're taking. If you need like more healing, then maybe you might have to level up your support a little bit more. But for the most part, you want like your damage dealer characters. Also, there's like these are all like year 1 characters. That's the only reason I have these. But yeah, I would talk like meta characters. There are obviously characters that are better than others in this game, as they are like in every other game. So you do want to try to focus specific characters if possible. Obviously, don't go super out of your way to, you know, like wait until you get like a really meta character. You should kind of just go with what you have, level up like whatever best characters you have at the time. And then, you know, just put like the bare minimum into them if it's like worst characters, and then kind of go from there. Like you kind of just need to get something up and running as soon as you can. The next thing would be to try to do your reputation quests as soon as you can. Reputation quests you unlock around like AR 25 or 30, I think. And they give you like a lot of rewards. They give you like a lot of mora, which is like really good early game. The way you do reputation quests are you do like these bounties. You're only allowed to do 3 per week. You do the bounties. You should always try to do like the highest level possible, because that gives you like the most, you know, reputation XP, and also gives you like the most mora. As you level up your reputation, so each region has like a reputation system. This is like the Mondstadt one, so like, you know, level 1 gets you just like a recipe, level 2 gets you an animalculus resonance stone, which just allows you to kind of see any animalculus that are on the map. The culus things are, just to quickly explain that. So each region has specific culus, or occuli, I guess you could say. You collect these, you turn them into the statues, like the main statue of the 7. Each region has its own, and you turn them into these statues, so you'll just see them out, like out and about in the world. They show up on like the mini map as like kind of like a star looking icon. You collect them and then you turn them into the statue, and then those give you like extra rewards like primos. They'll give you like domain keys, which you use those to open up like shrines of depth or something like that, I think they're called. And that's also how you get like a bigger stamina bar, because you start off with like a really low stamina bar, like I think just this first bar. But as you like level up your statue of the 7, you gain more and more stamina. So going back to reputations though, yeah, so you use this animal, the resonance stone, to help you discover any missing that you might have in the region. My recommendation for this though is, instead of crafting these, because you have to make them one by one, I think, unless they ended up updating that, but I'm pretty sure you craft it and then you can only use it once, so you have to craft like multiple. My recommendation for that, and like a little bonus tip when you're collecting stuff like that, is mark it on the map. So what I do is, like, when I collect one, like say there's one here, I'll like mark it right there. And what I do afterward is, which technically you can do it before too, but I like to like actually explore the game and try to find stuff myself, and then like I'll do like a second pass over looking at the interactive map. And there are a bunch of interactive maps. You can either use like the official one on the Hoya Lab app, or you can just use like whatever third-party interactive map. And then yeah, so you pretty much just like mark them, you know, like wherever you end up finding one. And then this helps you keep track of the ones that you have. And then once you have them all, then either you have them all or maybe you're missing a couple. You check the interactive map, find out which ones you're missing, and then, you know, you go back and get those, and then you kind of move on. And you just go through and delete them, and then, you know, you kind of go from there. It's worth doing them for every region because, yeah, it gives you like a bunch of rewards. It gives you like a bunch of primos, mora, shrine of depth, keys, etc., etc. And the main thing is just like for the stamina though. Yeah, I keep kind of keep going on that tangent, but back to like reputation stuff though. So as you continue to level it up, you get like random gadgets. So like this wind catcher one lets you create like a little stream of air that kind of like launches you up. It's a nice little exploration thing to have if you don't have like exploration characters, you know, super early on. Another random gadget is this NRE, which it just lets you have food kind of like sitting in your back pocket so you can use it whenever. But the big thing are the treasure compasses. And the treasure compasses are exactly that. They show you treasure locations on your map. These days it actually works pretty well too. So it's like really worth to build this if you intend on getting the absolute maximum amount of chests, or if you care about getting 100% exploration progress. It's pretty cheap to make too. It's worth having every region's treasure compass. So, you know, there's like one for like every region pretty much. It's pretty worth having, and you know, there's no reason not to make them. They're pretty good these days, and they show like a lot. Other than that, the final thing is always just like a wind glider thing. It's like a new wind glider skin. And then whatever. Oh yeah, and the portable waypoint. These are pretty good early game because some of the boss locations are kind of weird. So these are kind of nice for like the earlier regions to make like your own custom waypoint. These last for like a week, and then it kind of despawns and you have to craft another one. Other than that though, you also have weekly quests, but these are pretty easy to do. So for like this one, you just have to give her 3 dandelion seeds, which is pretty easy. And yeah, you can only do 3 of these per week also, just like the bounty hunt ones. So like this guy wants 10 wheat, and then this guy wants 3 Cecilias. And as you can see, they all give mora. And on top of that, this is also like how you can kind of track which quests you have or haven't done. These also give exploration XP. Although these give like way less outside of like the main quest ones. But it's like a good way to track like kind of like where you're looking region-wise. So yeah, reputation quests are like really good to do. Try to do them as early as you can because these are time gated, as you can see, or as I've been saying. With yeah, you can only do 3 per week. They're pretty worth doing though, because yeah, pretty good chunk of mora, and the compasses are like really good. Moving on to the next thing is to not spread your resources too thin, which I kind of mentioned that earlier because I just kept talking and talking. But you really do want to kind of spread your resources as efficiently as you can, but obviously me just saying that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But again, like, everything requires like a bunch of mora, everything requires like a bunch of ascension material to ascend. So, and like your talents all cost like mora too. And you know, you need like a bunch of skill books, you need a bunch of, you know, enemy drops, which I want to say that this is like kind of a resource type of game. So like, don't be too turned away because you have to like do a lot of farming by either defeating certain enemies. So like, for example, if you pull up your adventure book, you can see enemies on the world maps. These are like bosses specifically, but like say for like easy enemies. So you do need to like farm these character and weapon materials. You get these just from defeating like just regular enemies. Back in the day, there were achievements, or not achievements, but challenges for the weekly battle pass challenges, where you had to farm like 100 region-specific materials, for example. So like in Mondstadt, there are things like dandelion seeds, or like Cecilias, or lampgrass, which you need those to ascend certain characters. Like each character kind of has like its... Each character kind of has like their own ascension material. So like for her, she requires glazed lilies. I like most of my characters leveled, so it's kind of like hard to show. But like Amber requires, I think, like, yeah, lampgrass. And she also requires like hilly churl shooter arrowheads. On top of, there's like a world boss material. And then also these gems, which you get gems from killing like the world bosses. So this game does require you to farm and like actively be trying to get these materials. This is kind of like a resource type of game, so if that kind of turns you away, then yeah, I mean, there's not really much to say about that. Like, you have to just farm things. Early game, obviously, you will have very little, because, I mean, you start with, like, nothing. I will say, though, that they have made it easier over time, because, for one thing, I don't want to get into the shop too early, but just to quickly talk about, like, materials, you can technically get them from the shop, from the technically free shop. I wouldn't recommend doing this though right away because, yeah, you're not going to have enough of that material. But I'll get into that more later on. But I'm just saying that now because technically if you are a paid player, you can kind of speedrun that route. But for the most part, yeah, you're going to have to be doing like a lot of farming. And honestly, I mean, it's kind of fun to do, especially, well, I mean, it was back in the day. These days, everything's like a lot more automated because, you know, I'm like a super endgame player. So I just happen to have like a bunch of like resources just kind of like sitting in my inventory. But, yeah, don't be too turned away from having to get resources. And then, yeah, like I said, try not to spread it too thin. Try to focus on specific characters and then commit to using them. Again, try to focus on the stronger characters meta-wise. You know, there are plenty of like places you can see which characters are better or not. But for the most part, you can kind of get away with like a lot of characters in this game. Especially for game modes like Imaginary Theater, which eventually require you to have like a bunch of characters built anyway. So don't feel too bad if you level up certain characters, because most likely you will need them if you eventually intend to do endgame content. Which leads me to like a bonus point of you can't really softlock an account in this game. I know there are like a lot of people that make posts about like, oh, I bricked my account because, you know, I leveled this character, or, you know, I pulled this character, or, you know, whatever. You technically can't softlock in this game unless you actively are trying to softlock by like only building like supports or something, like healers only for some reason. Or like maybe you only pulled for healers for some reason because you thought maybe it was like a DPS or something. But even then, it's not really like a soft lock because you can just get more resources and like eventually just get like different characters. Because, you know, there are always like a lot of people that make posts about like, you know, I stopped playing like 3 years ago and this is my account. I kind of want to start over because I kind of don't like the state of my account. And, you know, it's like one of those things where it's just like you can just continue to build that account up. You don't... It's better to just continue that account instead of making a new account. Because one of the problems people did back in the day was re-rolling. Which, you know, I'll get into that more later, but it's better to just play the game instead of trying to do like what ifs or trying to like min-max like the very beginning of an account. So you can't really softlock in this game, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just play the game and eventually, you know, things will kind of even out. Moving on to like the next point though is to save your fragile resins until AR 45. So fragile resins are an extension to your resin. Fragile resins, they you kind of get them here and there, either from event rewards, or you level up your AR, and you get them from like one of the AR levels, or you get them, there's like a bunch of different places you can get it, pretty much. These are good because they pretty much give you 60 resin, just outright. The reason why you want to save them till AR 45 though is because at AR 45 that's when gold artifacts are guaranteed to drop. So the concept is you save your fragile resin. I mean, this is like regular resin. You save your fragile resin in order to quickly farm up in artifact domains. And the reason why you do that later is because even back in the day, like it was like a pretty smart thing to do because it just made like a lot of sense. But these days there's so much content available that you can reach AR 45 probably in like 2 or 3 weeks if you like consistently just play the game like every day. You do like your dailies. You do, you know, you're consistently doing quests, main story quests, side story quests. Spending resin, I don't know if I said that, but when you spend resin, you also get AR XP, by the way. Also... Oh, wait. Okay, I don't know, just book commissions. But yeah. Another thing was, I forgot to talk about was daily commissions, so that's my bad. Quickly talk about it, but daily commissions, basically, every single day they reset. You get 4 daily commissions that are just kind of like in the world. And you can do those. Some are like quest specific, kind of. They kind of have like a storyline to them sometimes, like for some of them. So some are still worth doing these days if you care about like achievements, because some of them lead to like an achievement. But otherwise, like commissions have mainly been phased out of the game because now you can technically skip them. And the way you skip them is that if you read this, basically you get encounter points from pretty much doing like anything in the game, either doing quests, collecting stuff, like anything, opening chests, or just taking part in events. And what the encounter points allow you to do is once you spend 120 resin, you can just claim these encounter points using your encounter points like stored. You can just auto claim. So like instead of doing these commissions daily, you can pretty much skip them. This is pretty much guaranteed. Like you should always have these pretty much if you play the game, because like as you can see, like you get them from like everything. Opening chests, quests, whatever. So you get the long-term encounter points, and then you spend 120 resin, either by condensing it or just like spending it like anywhere. And you can just auto-claim your daily commissions. So you can like just completely skip doing this and save like a bunch of time. You claim this, and then afterward you have to go to Katheryne, and then you claim like the bonus rewards. So as long as you're doing stuff like that, quests, daily resin, or spending resin, doing your daily commissions, exploration, etc., you can hit AR 45 like really fast. So what you want to do is save your resin, wait until you hit AR 45, and then that's when you just like start dumping resin into artifacts to make your characters really strong really fast. My personal recommendation is to just not even farm artifacts like at all. Just use whatever free ones that you get while you're doing quests, or while you're doing your battle book, because you get like rewards from just doing like regular like achievements and stuff like that. So like as you kind of go along doing this, as you can see, you get artifacts just kind of given to you pretty much for free. So pretty much just use like whatever artifacts you end up getting through quests or from like this book or from, you know, like random world quests or whatever. Oh, and then also this, which is like another, it's like pretty much kind of like this, but like more general. So as you can see, like you have like weapon here, you have like random materials here and there. Or not a weapon, but like when you ascend weapons. But yeah, you get like a bunch of like random artifacts just playing the game. So my recommendation is to use whatever the game gives you. Maybe level them up if they end up being a good stat. You might be wondering what makes a good stat. So like these days the game kind of has built-in like kind of artifact recommendations for characters. It's generally pretty good, I would say. It goes based off like what players have characters built as like the majority, and that's kind of like what it goes based off of. It's pretty good, but there are certain cases where you might have to swap things more so to fit like whatever that team ends up actually needing. Obviously, you won't really know that if you're like a new player, so that's just like one of those things where you'll learn over time. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but for the most part, you can just kind of look at this and kind of see like, okay, he wants pyro damage bonus for his goblet. He wants either crit damage or crit rate. And he wants like Crimson Witch 4-piece set. But obviously, if you don't have those pieces, then you'll have to just kind of go with whatever you have at the time. So as long as you hit like the main stats, the set doesn't matter as much early game. But as long as you're hitting like the main stats, and say if you get like a good one with like pyro and it has like really good crit rate and crit damage and attack percentage, because for like a character like Diluc, he prefers crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent. If you get pieces like that, then you can kind of level them up, I would say. But for the most part, try to get as far as you can without leveling up artifacts like at all, because it's better to try to save the XP and stuff like that and the mora cost up until you get like golds. But if you have like decent purples, or like you're really struggling to, you know, defeat enemies or world bosses or whatever, then don't feel too bad about throwing in some levels into like, even if it's like a blue artifact, it might be worth doing. Just keep in mind that not all characters scale off the same thing. The way you check that is if you go to a character's talent page and you kind of just look at their damage. It'll either say like right here, or you actually have to like read you know, like the skill thing. So for her, she really likes EM because she's like an animal character. So she really likes elemental mastery. So for her, you would put like elemental mastery stuff. And then, you know, someone who's built with like HP, who scales off like HP percent instead, then you obviously would want HP stuff. So like max, based off max HP. So for her, you would build like HP, and then, you know, she selects crit. So things like that. If you get like good pieces, then, you know, just throw those kinds of things on. But for the most part, like, obviously it'll depend on how good you are at the game, which will kind of dictate what you can kind of get away with. So when I'm in my second account, I just straight up didn't level up like any artifacts till like I got to AR-45. I think I might have leveled up like a couple. But for the early game, you want to focus mainly on your character level and then your weapon like right after. Or no, I would say your character's main level and then level up your talents. And then your weapon and then artifacts probably last. Just because like if you get good weapons, especially early on, they will have like very good value over time. Because eventually, like, obviously, like every character will need a weapon eventually. So if you get like good purple weapons early, it's worth leveling them. Again, it's going to be like a resource management thing to where you'll have to kind of pick and choose what's worth leveling. There are some blue weapons that are worth leveling. Dark Iron Sword for like EM based characters. Fillet Blade is alright. There are a pretty good amount of like bows, I think. Like the slingshot, it's pretty good for like a blue. Like it's actually like really good for a blue because that's crit rate built in. Same with let me find like a quick. Same with like the white tassel is also pretty decent for like an early game blue, especially if you like refine it. Which the way you refine weapons is if you have like a bonus copy of the exact same weapon, you can refine it. So make sure you try to like refine like every weapon you get. I would recommend keeping like a copy of like every blue, because there are some that are weirdly really good, like the black tassel, which has HP percent, which is pretty rare on a staff or like a pole arm. So it weirdly, some of these weirdly have their uses. So I would recommend trying to keep a copy just in case, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, and then with artifacts kind of being like towards like the later stages of the game. So like once you hit AR-45, that's when you want to start farming for artifacts. But obviously you should kind of, at around AR-45, everything should be kind of, you should be trying to get characters kind of like even at that point, like closer in level. So like instead of having like just your main DPS like super high leveled, and then maybe like a sub DPS support style character, like buffer, being like 20 levels, maybe try to get it closer to like 10 to 5 levels or something. And then instead of like your healer being like 20, 30 levels under, maybe 10 levels under too. But then, yeah, you want to be trying to farm for artifacts. And then, yeah, like I said, by the time you hit AR45, you're going to have like, I mean, these days, probably even just close to like 100 maybe. So you'll have so much fragile resin that you can just instantly, like, unless your RNG is like really bad when you're farming artifacts, you'll probably be able to get like a really good set pretty easily. At the very least, like a starter set kind of going, just so that way you can start like actually doing damage and start, you know, taking on like even higher content, because then at that point your world level is going to be kind of high. But yeah, the recommendation is to just kind of like level things kind of as you see like you're kind of struggling. Maybe it might be time to start leveling your artifacts a little bit. If you think you can get away without doing it, and you don't mind like fighting an enemy for like a really long time, then you know you could save a little bit of resources. But it's one of those things where it's kind of just, it depends on what you kind of want to deal with and what you can kind of get away with. But yeah, the general recommendation is character level first, talent books, weapon, and then artifacts. That would be my personal recommendation of what you kind of like level. Because talents are permanent, but then like weapon, there's a chance you might get a better weapon later on. So that's why I don't recommend committing to a weapon too soon. But at the same time, your weapon does give like a lot of just like attack generally. Or maybe like an energy recharge one in case you like need energy recharge. Or you know, whatever. But yeah, that's kind of like the general progression for like a character that you want to do. One thing to note for Traveler specifically, which is like the main character, each elemental is separate in terms of like, so like this is, I currently have on the anima one, as you can see. If you swap them to like Geo, Pyro, or like whatever else, you have to like re-level all the skills. So that's like something you have to kind of keep in mind. Um, I wouldn't recommend leveling the Traveler much, really. He's kind of not that good. But if you like to like kind of play as like the main character, which I did personally play as the main character for through till the end of Leo West story, like I actively used him, and he's pretty good for like the early game, obviously, because it doesn't really matter that much for the early game. But just keep in mind that if you try to level somebody like the Traveler, each element does require you to re-level up his individual talents. So yeah. So the next thing from that is the teapot. Okay. So the teapot is something, I don't know exactly when you get it. I think it's like towards the end of Liyue. The teapot is a very big source of like a lot of materials, and I would really recommend you not to neglect it.
This realm.
I'll quickly show like the shop. So weekly, I'm pretty sure, obviously I can't see because I already bought it. But weekly, the shop resets. I'm pretty sure you can buy 300,000 mora per week. I'm pretty sure it's 300,000 anyway. Obviously I just kind of like do it just super quick, so I don't know like off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's like 300,000 per week of like bonus mora for pretty much free. You also get something called the transient resin, which works pretty similarly to like just like a fragile resin, except that if you don't use it within a week, it expires. But most of the time, like you buy this and you should use it like right away anyway. You can only get one per week and it resets every week. You can also get sanctifying essences, which these just level up your artifacts. These are worth getting too, just so you can like quickly level up artifacts. Because the other way you level up artifacts is by using other artifacts to level up your main artifact, which you might struggle with in the early game because you probably won't have that many artifacts kind of just like sitting around to use as fodder. So that's where these come in, where you can just like level them directly. Things like the Mystic Enhancement Ores, these level up your weapons. So these are worth buying too, kind of, if you have like the spare realm currency available. And then this is also where you get XP books, which these are like massive value. Let me tell you. So like, I think early game, from this shop, you should focus on Mora, the transient resin, and then probably the XP books. Whether that's just this one, or this one, or both. Or you can maybe opt for just the purple books and then get the enhancement cores. It'll kind of just depend. You're not going to have that much realm currency available right away because the way you get more realm currency is by leveling up your realm. So you need adeptal energy for that, which then allows you to make, you know, it ups your currency rate per day or per hour, I guess. The way you get this is a very specific strat, actually. So, let me try to show you that. So basically, there's like a very specific way to like really max out your realm your realm currency, and that is by crafting very specific things, like these statues right here. So if you craft like these statues, they're like super cheap cost to craft, and you just make like a bunch of them, like as many as you can, pretty much. The other thing is for like the indoors, which are like these little like curtain things. I don't know if I still have them up or not. Yeah, these. So like you just make like a bunch of these things. Let me try to like see the name of them. These are called the folding screens. So you just make like a legit just army of these things and you just place them all. The reason why you do this and the statues is because they give like a lot of adeptal energy and they cost like nothing to make. So you pretty much just try to craft as many as you can, which it's kind of limited to how many you can craft per day because there's like a pretty long craft time. The good news is you can these days you can buy if you come back to like the shop, you can actually buy where is it? You can buy these, the Adeptal Speed Vial. These allow you to instantly craft things. So, and they're pretty cheap. They only cost 10 per, and you can buy like 10 per day, I'm pretty sure. So you can speed, like back in the day, you couldn't buy that. So people had to like actually sit there and like craft the statue guy, like, you know, day by day. So there's like this stone lion statue, and then there's like this other stone lion statue, and then, you know, obviously like the folding screen that I just showed. So, you know, you just build like the folding screen, and it's like super cheap to make. It's like fabric, which is like really easy to make fabric, and then red dye, which is also super easy to make, and then just wood. This might be kind of a problem because you do have to like sit there and farm wood, specifically like in Dragonspine. But one of the things that they also added is that once you farm a wood for the first time, then you can come into here and just use like either iron chunks, white iron chunks, crystal chunks, and you can craft 50 per week. But then on top of that, or let me quickly show, like, as you can see, like even red dye, look at how easy it is, sunsetias, which you can get these so easily. And yeah, you can make like so many. You can also use carrots, you can also use like the valberries. Satan thing, and then that. And then fabric is also really easy. It's just silk flowers, which you can farm these like really easily too, and they give 10 per one. So yeah, the other way to get wood is by also just buying it. Again, you do have to farm it once, like yourself, by just hitting a tree. And then yeah, you can buy, what is this, 10? It's 10, and you can buy 10, so you can get 100 per week. So yeah, you can max out your realm your adeptal energy like really fast, pretty much, compared to back in the day where we were limited to like 4 per day. These days you can craft up to 10, but I think before it used to be like 4 or 5 per day, or per day. Nowadays you can craft up to 10, plus you can buy like those vials to like instantly craft, so you can get like the max of 20,000 like really easily these days. And yeah, it's really worth because yeah, this shop is like really high value. 300,000 bonus mora every week is no joke. I still buy this, as you can see, to this day. The bonus 60 resin is pretty massive value too, and then the sanctifying elixirs are pretty massive value too. I don't buy these because yeah, I just have like, I've never like had problems with Heroes Wits or like the character XP books because yeah, I managed to space out my resources pretty well, I would say. So that was like something I never really had problems with.
If you ever
Which is why earlier I recommended to try to farm things kind of like evenly, so like XP books, farm mora. Like pretty much early game you should pretty much only be farming these because that's what I did, and yeah, like I said, to this day I've never had like any problems with either. One special thing is once you get AR60, any bonus adventurers XP you gain gets converted to mora. It's not like a crazy good conversion, but in combination with like the overworld mora that you kind of gain from events and stuff like that, means that you pretty much always have mora unless you're just like spending all the time. So yeah. So from that kind of was like the segue into currencies, because I just talked about like a bunch of like various currencies. But I'll go more into depth now. Mora, I've been talking about like pretty much this whole video, where pretty much everything requires mora to like level, whether that's a weapon, or an artifact. As you can see, like once you put like these, you can see like the mora cost. Leveling up weapons obviously costs mora. As you can see, kind of starts to like level up. There's also like the enhancement ores, like I said, which I talked about a little bit, but that's like another currency, kind of. It's more like a material though. Yeah, the enhancement ores are to level up weapons specifically. And then yeah, like I said, these require either funneling other artifacts into it, whether that's gold ones or like purple ones or blue ones, whatever, or these sanctifying things. I already showed you how to get those sanctifying things. You also get those from like random quests too, and like just random endgame modes. The way you get ores though is you farm. What's it under? It should be under here actually. So like this is like where these ores are, but the way you make those is you farm like random like ore veins out in the world, and then you come to a blacksmith like in any city, and you kind of craft them here. So if you farm crystal chunks, which you pretty much find them like everywhere, you come here and you craft them. I would only recommend crafting like the crystal chunks or the white iron ones. into things. You can only do a certain amount per day. I think it's like 40 per day. I'll quickly do that just to show you. So you can do up to 40 per day of the blue tier version, which this gives like a lot. And then I don't know how many for this, it's probably like 60 maybe. And there's like the green tier version, which gives 2,000 per. And then yeah, you just kind of come back and collect them all. There's like a claim all button like right here when it's done. But yeah, you kind of just find those places kind of like literally just like everywhere around the world. To farm them efficiently, you do need either like a claymore character or like a geo character. But as you can see, you know, you just hit it and then boom, you collect it. There are like a bunch of like these little like ore veins like just everywhere. I'll quickly show like the tree. So like if you literally just hit the tree and you get wood. There's also like a gadget you can use that'll like kind of auto farm for you. You kind of get that like later on. The boon of the elder tree. So like you use it while you're standing near a bunch of trees and it'll auto collect for you. And then there's like kind of like a cooldown. What other currencies are there? So yeah, the XP books. There's like the purple, the blue, and the green one. All of the character books give you character XP, which is how you level up your main character. Or like, you know, as in like your playable character. There's a bunch like just various enemy material, which, you know, you further use it for either character or weapon ascension. But yeah, just all of this tab is character, as you can see, character development. So there are things like weekly bosses where, you know, you kill the weekly boss and it gives you like a weekly boss material, which is how you, once you get to like character skill level 7 or 6, I think, you start needing these to further level up skills. So it's like really worth farming like world weekly bosses, and you can only fight them once per week. The first 3 attempts, I think, yeah, first 3 attempts are half cost. So these are like really worth doing when you're new, because yeah, it's half cost, but it gives you like 60 resin worth of like XP, and you really do need these mats anyway. So I would recommend doing these like every single week. Obviously, I'm not going to show like all the weekly bosses because I don't want to do too many spoilers. But I mean, this is like the first one, so I don't think it's like that big of a spoiler. So you want to try to do all the weekly bosses, you know, every week. You'll need like a lot of these for like the various characters that you end up leveling and stuff like that. There's also like a source of, you could potentially get gold artifacts from these. Same with like world bosses. You can also potentially get gold artifacts. So that's like another reason why you shouldn't actually, you know, farm like XP domains directly until AR45. And yeah, because there's a good chance you can get these, and these are pretty good for the early game. Also, I don't want to talk too much about what you should actively farm once you do get to AR45. It'll kind of just be depending on whatever characters you have at the time, would be my recommendation. Because like a lot of the new characters have like very specific artifact sets, but it'll kind of just depend on, do you want to make that character like really strong, or do you want to farm like more general sets that are like more resin efficient, because then you're leveling up, or you're gearing up multiple characters, so that'll kind of just be like one of those things where you'll have to make that call yourself. So moving on to primos. Okay, so this is like where the big topic kind of comes into play. So in this game, this is a character loot box type of game, so basically that means if you want more characters, you will have to pull for them. Same if you want signature weapons, Same if you want just like those standard 4-star weapons, which the 4-star weapons are really good too. There are some that are actually pretty high priority, even for 4-star, because most of the time, like, your main DPS, in my my recommendation is main DPS characters, try to get the signature for. Don't go too out of your way to try to do it though, especially if you don't have enough currency at the time. Obviously, I would always just recommend getting like a stacked roster first. But it's one of those things where it kind of depends on if you're a paid player or if you're a free-to-play player. So, and it'll also depend on how many primos you have on hand and how many you have like in the world. Because if you're like a new player, you have like the entire world. And the only thing limiting you is like how much time you have to actually just go on and collect them all. Whether that's from quests, chests, or, you know, like whatever. So the way it works is it costs 1,600 or 1,600 primogems in order to do a 10 pull, which I'm not gonna do that just to demonstrate because yeah, I don't really just have like primos to just spare just for fun. But yeah, the two limited banners are kind of connected in the sense of like, in order to get a character, the soft pity kicks in at around 80 pulls. The hard cap is 90 pulls. At 90 pulls, you're guaranteed a character no matter what. If it's the first time you've ever pulled a character on this banner, on either of these banners, like the two limiteds, the way it works is it'll always be a 50-50 for the first time. Once the 50-50 kicks in, if you don't get the limited character, it's guaranteed to be the limited character the next time a 5-star drops. If you win the 50-50 and get the limited character right away, it goes back to a 50-50 the second time. The only time the 50-50 turns into a guaranteed is if you don't win the 50-50 and you get like a standard banner character. And that sounds confusing maybe, but like it'll make more sense like once you just like do it. But essentially, yeah, just there's a 50% chance that it'll be Flynn's in this case because my most recent character was Llama, which was the limited character. So that means like my 50-50 reset basically. So yeah, as you can see, Llama, which was like the last limited character. So now if I were to pull now, it's a 50-50 chance that I actually get the featured character. And yeah, if I lose it, then the next time it'll be guaranteed to be Flynn's. Or, you know, if I'm pulling on this one, it'll be guaranteed to be on. The pity carries over to both of these banners. So like both of these banners are kind of connected in that sense. But they obviously are separate in the sense that if I only pull on this banner, I will only be able to get Yelan. Or, you know, if I lose the 50-50, then I'll get like whatever standard banner characters are in the game. Which, if you go here, you'll see like all of these are standard banner characters. So it'll either be one of them or it'll be Yelan. So if you want to be guaranteed 100% of a character, you technically need 180. The thing is, the 180 is like really... That's if you get so unbelievably unlucky, which is like extremely unlikely. It's more so you need like 160. Because again, soft pity kicks in at around 80 pulls. So it's pretty rare to actually get to 90. I remember they showed like the sten. It's like so unbelievably low that it actually takes people to 90 pulls to get a character. That being said, the main character is obviously like the 5-star, and then the rest are 4 stars. The 4 stars aren't guaranteed like at all, really. They have a higher chance of dropping, but they're not guaranteed either. And there's a good chance that if you're trying to target a specific one, you might not get that one like at all, potentially. So that's just something, it's not recommended to pull for 4 stars specifically. It's more so like you pull for the 5 star and then maybe you hope to get whatever featured 4 star that you might want or need. My recommendation on how I do pulls is obviously I try to go for, the only time I pull is if it's a character that I want. And then normally if it's like a really good 4 star lineup and like I'm missing a couple constellations, I'll pull for the character obviously, and then maybe I'll do like 20 or 30 bonus pulls, because the way I view it is if I get that character C1 for 20 to 30 pulls, that's pretty massive value. On top of like, you know, I'm obviously trying to get like a couple 4 stars, either 4 stars or 4 star constellations. And if I lose the 50-50, that's also pretty good, because then that means my next character is guaranteed anyway. So it's like, okay, I pulled like a 5 star within 20 to 30 pulls, and even if I lose the 50-50, and don't get like the bonus constellation for the banner character, then that's still pretty good value, because my next, you know, it's like guaranteed to be the character the next time around. Which, yeah, the pity carries over between banners. So like once this banner goes away in 19 days, the pity carries over. So for example, my llama that I last pulled during the last banner, I pulled around like what, like 40 I think. So like 40 pulls, 40 wishes ago. So I'm 40 wishes in, which means I'm pretty much guaranteed a character in the next like 40. Technically the next 50, but again, soft pity kicks in like around 80. So I'm counting it as 40. So yeah, that carries over. That doesn't like go away or anything. So yeah, it'll be 40 pulls to my next character. So moving on from like the limited character ones is the limited weapon. The way the limited weapon one works is kind of different, to where it goes from like a 50-50. Either you get the banner character or you get the, like a standard banner character. Over here, it's like 75-25, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 75. The reason why it's 75 though is because there's a chance, so like say, so you can select a weapon. You used to not be able to do this, by the way, but these days you can do this, and then they changed it from 2 to 1 point. So the way it works for the weapon banner is it's first of all, it's like a separate pity counter, separate from this, and separate from like the standard banner. So the way it works is that it's a 50-50 between these two, and then it's like 25% chance to get just like a standard banner character or a standard banner weapon. So like, as you can see, these are all the standard banner 5-star weapons, and then these are the 2 limited weapons. So the way it works, there's a 75% chance to get either of these, but then between both of these, it's like a 50-50 which one you get. So like the way it works is, say if you lose the 50-50, whether it's to the other weapon or to like the standard banner weapon, you then get a fate point, which makes it guaranteed to be whichever weapon you ended up selecting, which you can select whichever weapon you want. And yeah, so the best case scenario is like, it's a weapon banner like this, where like both weapons are actually pretty good. Well, actually, I mean, I'm not gonna say his weapon's pretty good, but like her weapon is really good though. So like, say if you already have Flynn's, or like you pulled for Flynn's and you want his weapon, if you happen to lose the 50-50 to this, generally it's pretty good, because like some weapons are like just really high value for other characters, and Yalan's weapon just so happens to be like really high value for a bunch of other characters. So even if you lose to that, it's kind of good sometimes. It just depends on like what the other weapon happens to be. So say you lose a 50-50, you then get a fate point. So the next time you pull a character, or the next time you pull on this banner, it's guaranteed to be the weapon that you chose. So depending on how many primos you have, this ends up being like really high value if that ends up being the case. As you can see, there's also like this. This is called an intertwined fate. And these, sometimes you get them from like quests or like events or like, you know, right now during the anniversary thing. These are used for the limited banners, which is this banner, and then the limited weapon banner. You only want to use primos on these 3 banners, okay? You should never ever use primos on the standard wish banner or the Noel banner. For the most part, you can maybe spend primos if you like really want to rush the Noel banner. Obviously, I don't have the Noel banner because, you know, I'm not a new player. But like if you're a new player, you will have like a Noel banner where it costs like 8 pulls instead of 10. Try to save up the standard banner pulls and use those for the Noel banner. But if you're like a paid player and you just want to like kind of move on like right away, you could technically spend primos on it, but I wouldn't recommend it still. Just wait until you have the Acquaint Fates, which are the standard banner pulls. As you can see, it's like very different. This one's like kind of like glittery pinkish blue, and then this one's just blue. So, and then going into like the shop, so you get Masterless Starglitter when, honestly, I'm not actually sure how you get this currency specifically. I think this is when you get like a dupe. So when you get a character that you already have, I think you get this one. You otherwise get this one for like everything. Actually, you might get this one for... Yeah, I'm actually not sure how you get this one specifically. I think it's when you get a dupe though. And then you get like more if it's like a 5-star dupe. And then this one you just get like every time you do like a pull, I'm pretty sure. So like no matter what you get, you will always get this one. So for like this shop, you should only ever get intertwined fates. If you really, really want constellations, you could technically go for the characters. But there are very rare ones that you actually would want to like willingly go for. These weapons are kind of like, they're kind of bait, really. I would not recommend like pretty much like anything else in the shop. As for the Stardust exchange though, every single month on the 1st of every month, you're allowed to buy intertwined fates and acquaint fates at a quote-unquote discounted price. The problem with it though is that you can only buy 5 per month, so it's like it's always like a discount, but like it's not actually a discount, you know what I mean? You should always buy the intertwined fate first, and then buy the acquaint fate. But you should always buy both of these like every single month. Even if you don't pull like at all, you should almost always have like enough of this, as long as you're not like spending on like just random other stuff in this shop. I would say to always have like around like 2,000 to 3,000, just so that way you can guarantee buy these every single month. Anything over that, you can kind of just spend it on like whatever, whether that's mora. I mean, yeah, I would recommend like mora. Maybe adventure XP if you like really need it. As you can see, like the cost, it gets like really expensive really fast. But like this is pretty cheap, you know, all things considered. This is also kind of cheap, so that's like alright too. The thing is you like really get a lot over time of this, so it's not really worth. But like mora, like you always end up needing mora. The other things I buy personally are like these things. So like these are like character material drops. I buy these sometimes, especially if it's like a brand new character that just came out, where like a new region just also came out. So like I don't have like enough to farm per day. And since I'm already like in the end game, like I want to be able to like use those characters in the end game. So like in my case, I'm having to level up characters to the absolute max. So, you know, if I want to use them for like an end game mode, like I'm not forced per se, but like if I like really want to use those characters, I have to like speed level pretty much. And the only way to speed level is technically I can join another world, I think, and just farm like more uh, enemy drops, or I can just come in here and just quickly buy these. They're generally pretty cheap too, so these are maybe worth if you're a new player, if you want to just like really start like leveling characters like really fast. If you're a paid player, obviously, then like really go for it. Because then more than likely you have like a bunch of this currency. So yeah, but generally try to save around 2,000 to 3,000 if you're like a free-to-play player. But otherwise, yeah, if you have like resources to spare, then you can buy like the mora. I would just recommend the mora, really. And then yeah, this last tab is just, you can just buy these directly if you want. I usually just keep it like as a full thing, because you know, people joke about it a lot, but there are like people who, I'm not even gonna like do that just in case, but there are people who accidentally buy these. I don't know, most of the time it's like a joke, but I think there are people who do accidentally buy like the standard banner pulls. So I personally just leave it as a primogem just to be like absolutely safe, but you can technically just convert them right away if you like really wanted to. But there's no real need to, because then you can just go here and it'll like auto convert anyway. It's not like it costs more or anything. But yeah. Those are kind of like all the currencies. It's not like too complicated. It's, you know, it's one of those things where you just have to play the game and you kind of just like learn about it over time. Like this, you should just play the game. I know that's like a, I don't know, that sounds like such a stupid concept to like have to explain, but like for a lot of games that come out these days, people instantly look for guides on like everything. So it'll be like a brand new game that's been out for like a day or two and people are instantly looking for guides to like, you know, get like the strongest thing or like whatever. So don't worry about it too much and just literally just play the game, just like how everybody else played the game like 5 years ago. And you know, you kind of just like learn things over time. It's nothing like too crazy to try to figure out. And most of this stuff, like it doesn't really even matter like super early game anyway. Unless you're doing something like extremely wrong, then I mean, you'll kind of like know too. Otherwise, yeah, it's just one of those things where just over time you'll kind of figure it out. There are other things like sigils too. The way you get sigils are from like, it kind of depends per region. Like in the Geo one, there are like these little like crates, kind of like in the water sometimes, or like little like rock, rubbles of like rock, or like in Inazuma, I think it's like purely just like little boxes. In Sumero, I think they're like little like grass covered rocks. Fontaine, they're also like rocks. Natlan, they're like bigger rocks. You kind of just walk up to them and click on them. And basically, well, one, they count for exploration progress, so you should be collecting them anyway, but then they also give like a pretty good amount of mora if you're collecting all of them. You also get them from chests, I'm pretty sure. And basically, what you do with these sigils is like each region kind of has like a shop. And each shop, they all pretty much offer like the same thing. It'll be some type of like material. It'll be some type of like material, whether that's character level up material, XP books, or mora. So like you kind of go in here and you just like buy everything. And then just the reason I have like extras is because I just keep it for like collection purposes. But if I wanted to, I could just buy like all of the bonus mora. But generally you want to buy like the limited stuff first, and then you buy like the infinite kind of thing. It's infinite technically, but you do like run out eventually once you know, collect everything. But yeah, each shop kind of just has like a bunch of like random materials, so these are like pretty worth getting too. And yeah, I mean, you get the sigils, like I said, just from like exploring the world, opening chests, opening like little like boxes and stuff like that. The occuli, which I mentioned like way earlier, you just want to like collect these as much as you can. They give like a lot of bonuses when you level up the statues, so it's like really worth doing. The rest of these are just like random collectibles that you can technically use them. I just keep them for like collection purposes though. There's also like these things, the dust of azoth. You can either buy them from the shop, I don't know if you noticed that earlier, or you get this from the weekly bosses. And this just lets you convert weekly boss material, because the weekly boss material is kind of like RNG. So there's a chance that, like, say for example, you only get like this material, but you really need this material. Use the dust. Actually, wait. I think that's for... Okay, use the dust for the gems. So like if you need more gems of like another one, you use the dust to convert the gems. Which you need these gems for ascending a character to like the next tier up. So like from like level 20 to 30 and then from 30 to 40. You do need like these gems. And then the other currency is these dream solvents, which, yeah, you get these from any weekly boss domain. And yeah, it's the same concept where you use them and you can convert it to another boss material. So say if you like really need this claw, but you keep getting just this, you can click on the claw one and then convert like this one, the one that I have like 40 of, and convert it to this one using dream solvents. It's pretty useful, and yeah. And then this isn't a currency technically, but I'm gonna talk about this too while I'm here. Basically, if you have artifacts that you don't actually need, you can come in here and convert them to whichever ones you do need. You literally just click on it and then you kind of just craft. So if I want like this one, click auto add, or you can like manually click and choose. Click convert, and then it'll convert and try to give you these. So it's like another really fast way of gearing up your characters. So like if you wait for AR 45, which I mentioned earlier, save your fragile resins for AR 45, you start just dumping resin in artifact domains at that point. And all the ones that you don't need, like you can only use golds, by the way. You can't use purples. So you convert the golds into another artifact set. So say you're like farming like one thing, and then you come back here and you convert the unused ones into potential useful ones into another artifact set. So this makes it like really efficient to gear up multiple characters, like really fast, and well, technically really fast depending on how good your RNG ends up being. But yeah, there are like a lot of things that make gearing a lot less annoying, because there are a lot of ways to kind of gear up characters these days. So it looks like really tedious and look like it'll take like a long time, but at the same time, there are like a lot of things that kind of reduce that strain. So yeah. Other than that, any other currencies worth mentioning? Not really. There's like sanctifying elixirs, which I never actually use these. There are these dust of enlightenments. These just help you craft artifacts directly, pretty much. And then this like allows you to choose like the main stat, I think. Either that or it lets you like reroll. I'm not sure which one. But in combination, these let you craft like extra artifacts if you like really need them. There's also like these you get sometimes. You like use it and then you can kind of like choose billets and then you use like the billets, yeah, like a blacksmith, and you can craft kind of like a region weapon. So for Mondstadt specifically, if you get like the Northlander billets, as you can see, here's me claiming this, you can click claim all. So like in Mondstadt, you get the Northlander ones, and you can craft like these weapons. So like the Iron Sting, Prototype Raincore, Prototype Archaic, White Blind, etc, etc. And each region kind of has, well actually not really every region, but like, I think there are 3 different versions. But then there's like the Borderland one, which lets you craft like different ones. There are some that are worth crafting, but again, it's like one of those things where it'll just depend on what characters you have and like if you're like willing to spend the time to like do these. Otherwise, that should be like all of the currencies. I think the next obvious step would be like the battle pass, since we're kind of like on the topic of currencies. The battle pass opens up at around like AR20, I'm pretty sure. You do weekly missions, you do daily missions, you do like most of these reset, but then there are like event exclusive ones too. It's pretty much impossible to not max this out if you're playing like pretty consistently. I do like the absolute bare minimum every week, and it kind of just auto completes to like, you know, the max level of 50. And I always have like 15 to 20 days usually. As you can see, I'm level 46 right now, and there's 17 days left. And yeah, it's literally I just play the game and he's kind of just like auto-complete. My recommendation for the battle pass though is if you're a brand new player, I think the value of the battle pass is like extremely high, because it gives you like a bunch of like really good materials for the early game. So like a bunch of mora, you're getting like mystic ores, you're getting like sanctifying elixirs. You also get like these bonus materials which you get to choose yourself, like what you get from it. You know, just like a random pull here and there. Well, that's like whatever. It's mainly just like the resources that I think are like really high value, and then you also get a weapon you can choose. And most of the battle pass weapons are still good to this day. So if you want like a really strong weapon, like pretty much right away, the Serpent's Pen's still pretty good. The Black Sword's still pretty good. I think the Verdicent Hunt is still pretty good too these days. Deathmatch. I'm pretty sure this is also extremely good. This is like one of the newer ones. It is expensive if you want to R5, because then that means you have to get a weapon, you have to get a battle pass like 5 times pretty much, but in my opinion, battle pass has extremely high value in the early game, but then kind of falls off once you have like an account built. So it's like one of those things where if there's something to spend money on, it would probably be this, or it'll be the walk-in, because the walk-in's like $5, especially if you can get it on sale on like Google Play or something. Sometimes it's on sale for like $1, or like $2, or like $3. But obviously I'm not here to like tell you how to spend your money, but just in general as like a recommendation, that's kind of like what I would do. If I were a new player, I would consider the battle pass, but you don't like need it. That's just if you like really want to like not worry too much about resources right away, and to like kind of guarantee yourself kind of like an easier transition from the early game to like the mid game. But it's not required like at all. I don't know if I should mention it, but like I'm a day 1 player and I've been free to play. Technically, I mean, I have bought 3 walk-ins. But the reason why I'm technically still free to play is because 2 walk-ins only give you like 6,000 primos, and I pretty much never go under 10,000, so I've never actually spent them pretty much. The reason why I have 2 walk-ins bought is because eventually I do want to give this game like $60, because it's giving me like 5 years of entertainment, so I feel like the least I can do is give them back $60 for like the equivalent of like a full game. But that's just like, you don't have to do that obviously, you can be completely free to play if you want. I'm just telling you like The reason I bring that up is because I've never bought like anything in game, like I said, outside of those two walk-ins, and I've progressed pretty smoothly. That being said, I have played for 5 years, so that's like obviously I'll have like a massive roster built and stuff like that. But I think it's also because I've played the game pretty well, I would say, and I've managed my resources like pretty well. But yeah, just going back to the topic of banners though, my recommendation for banners is obviously you should always pull for who you like. That being said, I don't like when people try to give that advice to people and say to like ignore everything else. Especially because there are people who are in the predicament of, you know, I don't have like enough primos for, like, say you like a character now, but then you like the character that also got shown as like the next character. And maybe the next character is like more meta, and like the, you know, the current one's kind of like, eh. My recommendation would be to always try to pull for characters you like, but then also like strong characters that you also happen to like. Assuming you eventually you want to do endgame, it's good to have like strong characters now and start building them now. Because that makes like a lot of sense. The problem is the meta kind of shifts patch to patch, so like it's kind of hard to like recommend that too at the same time. If you only plan on never doing the story, then it kind of doesn't matter. But obviously it's still nice to have like stronger characters just to progress a lot more smoothly. But I'm not gonna be here to try to like influence you into who to pull for. But that is something I would recommend trying to do. Like, obviously pull characters you like, but then also try to pull for obviously good or meta characters as much as possible. But eventually you do need like a massive roster if you want to like tackle the multiple game modes that are in the game. I'll talk about that more a little bit later. So yeah, I just spent like a really long time talking about like primos and banner stuff. Also, yeah, there's like a really good one too. Is to only pull a character after you try them in the trial. The way you do that is if you click on the compass one, this like brings you all the events that are kind of currently ongoing. So here you can go to like the test run tab, and you can actually try the banner characters. The reason why I would recommend you trying them first is even if you like the character's looks, you might not like the gameplay, for example. So I would always recommend doing the trial first before you pull a character, because then you risk pulling for the character and then you end up like not liking the character gameplay wise. So it's like you should always just do the trial first just to make sure. Also, so that way you can kind of get a sense of like what the character even is. Because sometimes just looking at a character, you can't really tell if it's like a main DPS, sub DPS, support, buffer, healer, you know. So like Flynn's is a main DPS. Yelan's like a sub DPS who does like off field hydro application and damage. I know does like kind of like the same thing, but like not as well. She's kind of like a buffer, and then she's like a healer, and technically she can do damage in like a hyper bloom team. I'm not gonna talk too much about team comps in this video, but yeah, you should always play the trials and also try to figure out like what role each character is, so that way you know you don't end up pulling for a character that you end up not liking, or you know it ends up being like a character for like not the role that you thought the character was. So that's like a really good tip. So I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but like don't reroll. It's like a massive waste of time. Even like back in the day, it was like a massive waste of time. There are like people who legit spend like months trying to like reroll for like a perfect account. And in that time of rerolling, instead of just playing the game, those people ended up falling off or falling behind like super fast. because you pretty much just waste like 3 months worth of like daily logins, three months worth of like, you know, spending resin to farm things and stuff like that. All for standard banner characters that are, you know, standard banner characters, so they're only supposed to be good pretty much like at launch, and then they kind of fall off once limiteds start coming out. So yeah, it was never worth back in the day because it takes so long to do. And it's especially not worth re-rolling these days because not only does it take a long time, but you don't really get that many pulls anymore either. I personally never re-roll in games like these because I feel like it's a lot cooler when either you get like a character you really like first try or you don't, and then like it feels a lot more hype when you actually, you know, eventually end up getting that character. But obviously, I mean, you can play however you want, but in general, it's like a really bad idea to reroll in this game. You should just make an account and just start grinding. So yeah, as you progress too, you can co-op pretty much right away for the most part. And you should try to co-op pretty much whenever you can, especially if you kind of start falling behind, because people can potentially carry you. The thing is, if you get into like a lobby with like everybody being like really underleveled, then it becomes like kind of a problem. But you can also ask higher AR players to join you. So if you open up like the co-op page, you could technically just try to like message somebody, either add as a friend, hopefully they, you know, add you. If they do add you, then you can like message like, hey, can you join my world and, you know, help me do this domain. And the way you do co-op is you just go to domain and then you click match. So if you just want to like match with like anybody, you click on a domain or like any activity, click match, and you'll load into a co-op world. Or you can have somebody join you and then you just click start and then you click like invite and it'll invite like anybody who's in that lobby with you. So there's that you can do. So that way if you are like under leveled or if you're trying to like min-max and you're like consistently ascending your world level, but you know you're obviously starting to fall behind, you can try to co-op and you can try to ask higher AR players to join you. There are plenty of people that do actually try to help, so don't feel like too bad about trying to do that. Which leads to the next point of like trying to ascend whenever you can, as long as you don't mind the enemies getting stronger. Whenever you send the world level, so there's like world level ascension quests, and it's pretty much like the same thing. I think they changed it to where you only have to do it once these days, but I might be wrong on that. But there's like a quest you do. I think it's like over here somewhere. You do the quest and then your world level goes to like the next tier up. Enemies get harder, but they also end up starting to drop better items. Not better items necessarily, but like they'll drop more of the same, you know, material and stuff like that. So like world bosses will go from dropping like 1 to like maybe 2 or 3. And then like at higher world levels, they drop like 4 kind of like rarely. So yeah, and then just like general enemies also drop like more material too. It's worth doing, but also depends on how you're doing at that time. If you're having like a really hard time, even just in the current world level, then it might be a bad idea to ascend, and you should try to like level up your characters a little bit more first. But yeah, it'll obviously just depend on how your account's looking. And pretty much like the final tip is like I said at the very beginning of this video, I ended up skipping Abyss for like a really long time, for like a year, because I listened too much to people's advice of like, that's like, you know, that's like the paid player kind of territory. But yeah, don't try to fall for that too much these days. My recommendation is try to do endgame modes every now and then, just to test where you are account-wise and kind of just to see like what gaps you might be missing out on. I'll quickly get into the game modes now. So there's Abyss, which is the first game mode ever introduced to the game. It requires 2 teams, and these days it's like very specific with like the buffs that they kind of want you to use. That being said, you can still brute force if you have like the super high meta characters, or you can like just fulfill the buff requirement, which gives you like near double damage with like the 75%, or like it looks like 200% is like a lot, but electric charge, for example, is kind of weak. Bloom damage is also kind of weak, so that's why it's 200%. But in general, buffs are generally 75%, which is like pretty much near double damage. So as long as you can fulfill like these requirements, it's pretty smooth sailing, but don't feel too forced, because like if you have like a Malwika Mel team, unless a character like Malwika gets hard countered, or like if you have a Skirk freeze team, as long as like the enemies aren't immune to those damages, you can brute force with like really strong teams. Otherwise, yeah, you just fulfill the buff requirement and it's kind of smooth sailing from there. Initially, you start with 1 to 8. These don't reset, and you kind of have to like, work your way up. And then eventually get to 9, 10, 11, 12. And these reset on the 16th of every month. These used to reset twice per month, but with the addition of Stygian and Onslaught, it now only resets once per month on the 16th every single time. One of the quality of life things that they did is if you clear 12, I think as long as you just clear 12, whether that's with any stars or max stars, I'm not actually sure. You can auto just skip 9 and 10. Like you can just collect the rewards and then you just have to focus on 11 and 12. Back in the day though, you used to have to do 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that's kind of like a nice thing. The drops here are like really good. Lots of mora, lots of just random books, and then obviously the main thing being the primos. And then like a bunch more mora too. So it's like worth trying to push for this. But of course, like if you can't complete it, like I said, for me, I didn't even try to do it for like the first year of the game, so don't feel too bad if it takes you like a while. Although I will say characters are really strong these days. So there's a chance you can do this earlier, but I wouldn't stress about it too much, just kind of try to do what you can. The second game mode that they added was Imaginarium Theater. Imaginarium Theater tests more account width. So as of this current patch, the newest mode requires 28 characters minimum of 3 specific elements. So for this one being Hydro, Electro, Geo. This one will probably take you like a while to do, because even if you do like the normal difficulties, even doing easy mode requires 8 to 10 minimum, or 8 minimum, but 10 as the recommended. Normal mode requires 12, and then hard mode requires 16. The reason why you go for like the higher number is when you go for the higher number, so like this one being 14, this one being 20, you get extra buffs per character that you go over the minimum. So for most people, this will probably take a while, because this is more so testing how many characters you have, as opposed to Abyss, where that kind of just, do you have like really strong characters, or do you have like the current meta, or not current meta, but like current buff specific characters. This one's technically easier because the difficulty of the enemies are like lower health wise. But again, it just requires you to have like a lot of characters if you want to do like the higher difficulties. So this is like one of those ones where you just kind of do over time also. As you can see, it used to be hard mode with 8 stars. You don't need the stars technically. The stars are just like for like bonus rewards. As long as you clear it, you can get like the base rewards. And then they added visionary mode with 10 stars. And then the newest difficulty being the lunar mode and then there's 12 stars. But yeah, it's like one of those things where you kind of just do over time, and then, you know, you kind of just sit there and test kind of like where your count's at. And then the third and final endgame mode, which just got added like 3 patches ago, 3 or 4 patches ago. So there's only been like 3 seasons, I think. Stygian Onslaught. This one, depending on how far you want to push, is technically easy, but also technically kind of hard. If you purely want the primos, you only have to beat up to hard mode. And hard mode's pretty easy. It's like floor 12 level of Abyss of like chamber 1. Because yeah, these guys are only like in level 90. It's pretty easy to, you know, do up to hard mode. The hardest part is that you need 3 teams for this, because there are 3 bosses. If you want to do like the harder difficulties, Fearless is kind of like as far as most free-to-play accounts can kind of take on. As long as you have, like, these ones require very specific teams every time. So this one's like the hyper-specialized game mode. This is like the more hardcore type of game mode, I would say, compared to the other ones. So it has like its own niche of like, you can just do hard mode and call it a day. Because the rest of the rewards are kind of whatever. Like I said, like I don't even use these dust of alignment things. The 100,000 more is pretty nice, and then you can get like another 100,000 if you do Fearless. So moral-wise, it's pretty good, I guess. And then past Fearless, there's Dire, and then there's Dire within 180 seconds. Don't feel too bad about not getting these, because these give you like weapon skins, but like you only keep them for the rest of the patch, and then it resets and it kind of goes away. And then to get them again, you have to rebeat those difficulties. So they're like super limited time cosmetics, so they really don't matter that much. So don't feel too bad about doing these. Like, my goal with this is to just be fearless, which so far I've managed to do. But yeah, you need like a very strong roster, and you need like it's more of like the skill check type of game mode. For the most part. Obviously it's mainly still just as long as you have the characters, it makes it easier, but it's more of like the skill check type of game mode, so it's like a really cool niche compared to like the other ones. But again, as long as you only want the primos, like doing hard mode is like very easy. But even just doing normal or advanced, you still get 300 primos, so it's still pretty worth doing. So yeah, there's kind of like a natural progression, I would say. Do Abyss, try to focus a little bit on Imaginarium Theater, and then try to do like a little bit of Stygian as you slowly expand your character roster. And as you slowly are like leveling characters and stuff like that. Yeah, they all tackle different account requirements, I guess you could say. Whichever one's easier is kind of, you know, kind of depends. I would personally say if you Stygian hard is like pretty easy, as long as you have 3 teams that can take on the bosses. Otherwise, like Imaginarium Theater is technically also pretty easy, as long as you have like a massive roster to work with. But then Spiral Abyss is also pretty easy, depending on if you have like the characters that can fully utilize the buffs, or if you have like really meta teams that don't get countered by specific enemies. So it'll kind of just depend on where your account's currently at and whether or not you even care about doing Abyss. Like fully, either fully or, you know, just kind of like dip your toes into it every now and then. Try to just do like the bare minimum just for like the bonus materials and stuff like that. Other than that, I'll try to just talk about like random stuff, I guess. So there are other things in certain regions, like this Dragon Spine one where there's like a tree. And you have to like level up the tree. Other regions have this type of mechanic. It just requires you to like do some like random exploration. And yeah, you also get like just random materials and stuff like that. So it's like another thing to be doing. Other than that, yeah. I guess I'll talk about events too real quick. My recommendation on events is do them if you have the spare time. They're usually pretty easy. You can do them pretty fast. They might have minor spoilers, so I would say to like watch out for that if you like really care about spoilers. But for the most part, even if there are spoilers, like it's very out of context and you don't really understand what anybody's talking about for the most part. So it's generally pretty fine to just do them. The rewards are pretty good. Pretty good amount of primos, pretty good amount of mora. Sometimes they give XP books. Sometimes they give like weapon material and stuff like that. Kind of just depends. Like this one I think. Or wait, which one? I don't remember which one it was. It was like a recent one though. And it gave like a weapon, for example. But yeah, don't worry too much about them though, I would say. Like if you don't want to like burn out super hard, I would recommend to just focus on like the main story stuff and like whatever content you have on hand. But if you want to like just do these events because maybe they're like easy or maybe they interest you, it's worth doing for sure just because of like the bonus currency and stuff like that. This is like a new event that got added very recently. This allows you to get constellations for characters you already have. You're able to like switch it freely for the most part, up until the final day where you actually claim it. It only works on characters that you actually own though. And then for the most part, I mean, you can just choose whoever you like more. There obviously are some characters that benefit more from the constellation. But as like an early game player, I wouldn't worry too much about this, but just try to do it. It's pretty easy to do, just like over time. You just have to do your dailies pretty much and spend like resin, I think. So you do your dailies, you do your resin, you do that 5 times per week, which I mean you have 7 days in the week, so you can miss 2 days and still do this. You do this for 8 weeks, and then you know every week you're getting like something else, and then for the final week you get the constellation. This is just like a check-in event, nothing too crazy. You just log in and then you can kind of claim the rewards. This was for completing the main story, so you just get like random material for the featured characters, and then yeah, bonus primos. This is the test run, which I mentioned earlier, where I would recommend doing these for characters before you pull for them, just so you can try them out yourself. There's also the TCG game, which is like a card game. I'm not going to go too much into it because it's kind of like a side thing, although it does have primo rewards to it, but for the most part it's like a separate entity from like the main game. There's like the currency for that game mode, so you can like buy like more cards or buy like card skins and stuff like that. That's like an entirely different thing though. I'm not gonna get like too into that. There's Traveler Tales where like every day you can encounter characters throughout the world. And yeah, you get like primos for like every 10 you meet or whatever. This is just for like exploring like the new regions. Like whenever a new region comes out these days, if you explore like a certain amount of it and like do the world quests, you just get like bonus primos. It's pretty decent. This is also pretty much like an exploration thing. This is usually just like the new world boss, so that way you kind of like just know about it. This is for, I think this is like a permanent thing these days, where yeah, you can just select like a 5-star. I think this opens up if you hit like AR like 30 or something. I think like any new player can technically get that. I think they made this like permanent for the most part. This is just for like the rhythm game. They had like a rhythm game kind of thing. And yeah, if you just like do you do like the new songs and you get like a couple primos, and then there's just Imaginary Theater just so you can go there directly. Yeah, otherwise there's nothing else really to say. Most of this stuff is like, it's like you can go here just to kind of like see general information for like a bunch of things, but for the most part you can kind of just click on them from the map, but maybe you don't know where these places are, so you kind of come in here. So for the artifacts, it'll show you like exactly where the domains are and like what they have in them, and then you just click like the little arrow and it'll like tell you where it is, and then you can just click teleport. Same with like the weapon material, ascension materials, same with like the talent materials, and the weekly domains. The enemy tab, pretty much like you can click on it and then you can click navigate and it'll auto track the enemies. And each time you clear like that specific point, it'll show you like the next point where the enemies spawn. It doesn't show you every single spawn point though, so just keep that in mind. Like there might be like some extra enemies that it just doesn't show you. It shows you like elites too, which these are like the world bosses. These are also world bosses, but like I don't know like what the difference is really between these two. I think these are just like, yeah, I don't know. Actually, yeah, some of these are actually elite enemies. So these are also just like character and weapon material. But actually, yeah, I think all of these are. No, because this guy's also just like a world boss, I think. Oh wait, actually, maybe no, it's not. Actually, no, it's not. Yeah, so like the elites, there are less of them in the overworld. So yeah, some take like a little bit longer to farm. And then boss enemies are world bosses. So like just bosses for like that are in the overworld. And that's how you get the character ascension materials. And then others are just like the ley lines. So this will kind of tell you where they are, and then you can click like which region and then click navigate, and then it'll show you like the closest one. Other than that, not really sure if there's anything else to really talk about. And then yeah, I guess I'll talk about achievements, I guess. So most of these achievements you can kind of just do by accident, but if you want, you can go in here and just check for the achievements and like actively do them. The ones in the Wonders of the World and Memories of the Heart, the large majority of the Wonders of the World one are like hidden achievements. So yeah, if you intend to like min-max the achievements, I would recommend keeping track of them on whatever achievement tracking site you prefer to use. And yeah, there's like a lot of them. There's like near 900 in just this section. And then yeah, the rest are like named for the most part. So you can go in here and just like see whichever ones you're missing. And then, if you're like an achievement hunter, you can kind of like go out of your way to do that. That's like a bonus thing for some players. As of this patch, I think it's like 1605. I'm at 1603 right now though, but I only recently started trying to get to the max. So the last ones that I'm missing are like just very time gated, let's just say. Other than that, I don't think there's really anything else to talk about. I did forget to talk about Katheryne though, which is like a pretty big one. There's also like these shops. Some areas have them where you can just like buy, ingredients for stuff. I would recommend buying these because another thing that I didn't talk about were foods. Which you can make foods, they give you like different buffs. Like this one just like restores your HP. This one can like revive a character. This one gives you like crit rate. This one gives you attack. This one gives you crit rate and attack. This reduces like your stamina consumptions for sprinting and gliding. There's also like ones for climbing and sprinting. There's ones that just straight up restore your stamina, but you can only use these like once every like minute or something like that. So like if you're climbing something and you run out of stamina and you pop this to like finish climbing to the top, you can do that. These ones give you like defense. So they're worth doing for like early game buffs too. And yeah, you just get recipes kind of here and there. Going back to Katheryne though, one thing I forgot to talk about were expeditions. You unlock this pretty early on too. Obviously you'll, as you get to like the new regions, you unlock the new regions too. My recommendation is to always have them on ore farming and mora. That's kind of like what I have. I have like a pretty even split of like mora and ore farming, just in case I need like more ore over time. If you're a new player, you like 100% do ore plus the mora. Pretty much you just come back to this like every day, and then you click claim all, resend them all, and then you just do that daily. Back in the day, this actually used to use your character, so like if you put them here, you couldn't use that character anymore, but they changed that. And yeah, so you literally just put like whoever pretty much, and then put them on like the max timer, which is like 20 hours I think. Yeah, 20 hours. And yeah, you just collect those every day, and those are like just, it adds up, let me just say. So that's like another thing to just do daily. Other than that, I think I've gone through like pretty much everything. If I missed like anything like very obvious, I'll do like a pinned comment, or I'll do maybe like a follow, like a part 2 video or something, depending on like feedback from this video. Any corrections too will also be like in the description or like pinned comment. The only other tip I would say is try to like just keep track of things like on your map. Like any like farming spots, try to like put like, you know, a little farming thing, just so, like you know about it. So like say there's like a ore over here, you put like the mining one. Or if there's like a bunch of enemies in one spot that you're trying to farm, you put like the enemy icon maybe. For sure, keep track of your occuli. So like anytime you pick up an occuli, try to mark it on the map so that way you know which ones you've gotten, which ones you might be missing. Yeah, that would probably be like the biggest tip too though, is actively pin stuff so that way you kind of like know where things are, or you know, things that you've gotten. And you can also like put like a name, so like you know, something like that. For me, usually though, this is like my, if I've picked up a culus here, that's usually like, that's my go-to. And if it's like one that I can't reach, I'll use like this pin. So like if I know about it, I'll mark it with like this, and it's just like one of those things where like maybe I can't reach it yet or something. Or when I go through at the end and I'm like missing any, and I'm like looking for any that I might have missed, then I'll put this one, so that way like I know where it is. Other than that, the last tip would be to literally just have fun playing the game and not try to turn this into too much of a chore for yourself. Kind of just play and have fun. Do what you can per day with however much time you end up putting in per day. Progress at your own pace. Don't worry about trying to like quote unquote catch up, because it's pretty much impossible to catch up with, you know, like me, for example. Like I've been playing since day one, never missed a login. You technically can catch up to me, but you technically can catch up to me because I've pretty much hit like a wall in terms of like farming, you know, my artifacts. Your artifacts can only get so good, so like trying to get better is like a massive sunk cost where try to get like the extra couple percent in like crit rate or attack or whatever. It's not really worth. So technically you can still catch up to, you know, accounts like mine, especially if you're like a paid player. You can technically even surpass mine if you like have multi-constellations for limiteds or like multiple refinements for the limited weapons. But for the most part, there's no like catching up or like you're like super far behind or anything like that. So I wouldn't look at it like that. I would say play at your own pace. And if there's anything to catch up to, it's just like the story. Just being caught up with the story and then being ready to, you know, play the next part of the story and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing really else to say. I would say try to progress at your own pace. Don't spread your resources too thin. Level up characters you like, but also characters that are pretty strong, so that way you can progress smoothly. If story starts to become like a chore, then maybe go around and do some exploration. If exploration becomes kind of a chore, go back to doing stories. If both get kind of annoying, then maybe, I don't know, do the trading card game, which is located over here. I don't know when that unlocks though specifically, but you know, there's a bunch of different things you can do. There's also like fishing too, which I completely forgot though just now. There is also fishing, and it's exactly what you probably think it is, where you have to get like a lot of fish to get the stuff from those shops. It's like a bonus thing too. It doesn't actually give like anything directly impactful to your account. It's like a purely separate kind of thing. There's also like the rhythm game too that I mentioned earlier. Sounds like another thing for people who maybe like those. You know, you play through like the songs, there's like difficulties, and etc. etc. Maybe if you're like bored of everything else too, maybe you want to just farm like all day, like just farming all the enemies. I'll quickly show the fish shop. So as you can see, it's like pretty basic. It's mainly just like a region-specific fishing rod, which helps you fish kind of like a little bit faster. And then usually there's like some type of teapot thing that you can build. But otherwise, yeah, these are pretty like minimal, I would say. So yeah, there's like a bunch of things you can do if you get like too bored of like one thing. You know, if you get bored of story, you can do exploration. If you hate doing exploration, maybe you want to just like farm up a bunch of like random stuff, you could do that. There's the card game, there's the fishing, and you know, the rhythm game, you know, etc. etc. Yeah, I mean, not too much else. One other thing that I forgot to mention is you can condense your resin. The way you condense your resin is, I think, that's part of like a reputation one. I think it might be in Liyue. And the way the condensed resin works is you have to have 60 resin, and then you use a crystal core, which you get crystal cores from catching crystal flies. Which I can show that real quick, but you use that, and then it turns into condensed resin, which it lets you just farm like fast, like a little bit faster, because instead of using like a little bit of resin, you can condense it, and it's the equivalent of doing like 3 runs in one. As you can see, these are crystal flies. You just catch them pretty easy. They're like everywhere, and there are like region-specific ones. Like in Mondstadt, there are like these animal ones. In Liyue, they're like geo crystal flies, and then, you know, etc. etc. Cryo, pyro, hydro. Also, yeah, I don't think I ever showed the statue of the 7, but also when you stand on it, it'll heal your team. But yeah, as you can see, this is what the statue looks like, and then yeah, you just worship, and you give it the occuli you have, and then you kind of just like level it up. As you can see, this is pretty much like what they look like too. One little like fun fact about the occuli in the game is that every region has one extra. Nobody knows why, outside of like maybe they just do that as like a safeguard, or maybe it's like maybe it's important later on, nobody knows, but yeah, there's always like one extra, so just keep that in mind. Other than that, I think that's about everything. My only other tip or recommendation would be to try to always have a bunch of materials kind of like on hand. So even after you finish leveling one character, for example, there's a chance another character might also require certain materials. So it's good to have like extras just in case you get that other character. Also same thing with like these materials, and like same thing with like the books, and same thing with like the boss materials. Just note that some world bosses are like really easy, meanwhile other ones are like really big time wastes. Like the infamous Oceanid boss, which this is like one of the worst bosses to try to farm because it takes so long, because there's so many like immunity phases. So that's just like a little heads up. Otherwise, I think that's the majority that I can say for now. Yeah, there's like over like 2 hours of just talking, so there's a chance I might have missed some things, but again, I'll do like a pinned comment or like in the description, any like bonus things that I might have missed and think is like important, but for the most part, I think I've gone through the large majority of the things that I think are relevant. The only other thing, I guess, real quick, is constellations. And constellations make characters stronger. For limited character, like limited 5 stars, I wouldn't worry about that too much unless you're a paid player. For 4 stars, generally you want to try to get C6, but don't go out of your way to get C6 characters. I think I talked about this earlier. Going for C6 4 stars is kind of like a massive, kind of a potential waste, and you might end up wasting a lot of primos for, you know, potentially not even getting the characters because they're not guaranteed. They are nice to have over time though, because there are like really strong 4-star C6s like Jincho, like Fischl, where's she? Like Fischl, and then like Chevreuse, who's like more of a specialized overload buffer. But yeah, as you can see, like don't go too out of your way if it's not like a character bender you actually care about pulling for. Just to try to target like a 4-star, but at the same time, like it's one of those things where it's like hard to say to not do that also at the same time, because they could be good too, especially if it's like a character you don't have. So it's like kind of one of those things where it's like really hard to tell people to do it or not to do it. But it's one of those things where like over time, just hopefully you can try to get them. But otherwise, yeah, well, I guess one other quick thing I want to mention is friendship XP. Which is like, it's kind of like a whatever thing, but it's nice to have because that's how you get like name cards for certain characters. Which name cards look like this. So like this is like House specific one, or like Eula. And then the way you get friendship XP though, is they have to be in your party, and they have to be like the characters you use. And whenever you turn in commissions, whether that's the quick way that I showed earlier with just spend 120 resin and then you can just auto-complete, or actually doing the commissions directly, you also get them from when you turn in the adventure rewards with Katheryne specifically. And then the other way is from spending resin. And that's like the most consistent way. So like every time you spend resin, you get companion XP. So you have to make sure you have the character in the party. Otherwise that character doesn't get friendship XP. And then in even faster ways, if you co-op, you get double the companionship XP from all activities. Even with commissions. So if you want to like really min-max character XP, character friendship XP, then you want to try to co-op like as much as possible. But when you co-op, there's a chance somebody else might take your character, or you know you're like forced to swap, or you know whatever. Especially if it's like a 4-player co-op, because then you can only level up one character. Because then yeah, when you do 4-player co-op, you can only have one character out. Because yeah, you can only have 4 characters at once, like in the party, pretty much. Other than that, I think that's pretty much like everything. Again, if anybody wants to like min-max, you're free to do so. There are probably better guides than mine. But I hope that this kind of answers like a lot of questions. It's kind of like an all-in-one, so I just talked for so long that I'm not really sure exactly what I even talked about, but I think I went through pretty much everything. Any corrections, like I said, you know, feel free to correct. Any corrections, I'll also try to correct, like in a pinned comment or something. Any questions, comments, or concerns, you know, feel free to comment also, and I'll try to like answer like anything you have. Any FAQs too, I'll try to like throw in like a pinned comment that you know, I see like players ask, and I'll, you know, hopefully that provides like extra info and stuff like that. Other than that, I would say again to just enjoy the game and just play it. And if you feel lost, you know, it's kind of like the point. You should kind of like feel lost and feel like kind of overwhelmed as you slowly get into the game. Like that's just kind of how it is. And you know, it's just like one of those things where like over time everything will kind of make sense and you kind of like start to figure things out. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just try to progress as you can. And you know, if you have to look at guides to progress or whatever, or like to try to figure out character builds, there's like a bunch of those. There are a bunch of like websites too that you can check out for resources. But I would still recommend to just play the game yourself and kind of like learn things, and then over time check guides maybe. But that's just like me. That's like just like a recommendation for, you know. But you could obviously play however you want. I'm not gonna try to like dictate too much. But again, if you want to have like that actual new player type of like experience, I would definitely say to just play the game yourself as much as you can, and then over time kind of look up specific things and whatever. But again, it's up to you how you want to progress your account and stuff like that, so. But anyway, I'm gonna leave off here for now, because yeah, this has kind of gone on for a little too long. Hopefully you can take stuff away from this, and like hopefully this actually taught you like a lot. Again, apologies for not having the skill or technical prowess to like properly edit a video, so it's just like me talking the whole time. But yeah, hopefully I was able to like teach you some things, and then hopefully, you know, it wasn't like too boring or like annoying or whatever. Because yeah, this ended up going for like a really long time. But anyway, see you in the next video. Again, any questions, let me know. Any comments or concerns, or you know, bonus info you want to add in, let me know. And yeah, we'll go from there. See you in the next one.